and we're going to start by talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, because although it feels like particularly when you've been in, strangely enough, Leanne, we've talked a lot about Ronaldo and the situation at Manchester United because he's done this huge, high-profile interview. It's now gone outside of football media, outside of sports media, and now is in mainstream news reporting. So we need to reflect on that. And it is sort of similar aspects that we've covered over the time. So let's start by talking, first of all, about why on earth he would feel the need to do this right now.
Probably to help like engineering getting out, maybe, I don't know, because it doesn't seem to make any sense for him to be talking like he's speaking. I think that a lot of the stuff that he's said, when you consider the stature of the player and the club and what he's said, one of the things that stuck out to me more than anything is nothing's changed in the whole of the place in 17 years now. You have to only look at, obviously, the owners and Glazers and the fact that the Man United fans have been continually protesting their reign. Is that something that I would look at and think, wow, that's really damning? But I think for him to come out and speak like he has and say what he said, especially the disrespect towards the manager, which I found very difficult, you know, especially when he walked off the pit, refused to play and then walked off. I thought that was disrespectful. And I think the manager giving him the armband not long after that, maybe the game after, whatever it was, shows that he's got a certain amount of respect for him. But it just, for me, it smacks of somebody that wants to do this final thing, what everybody says, OK, let's go. Let's negotiate and get you out.
We'll come back to all the individual points and talk about them in a bit more detail. But just broadly, Leanne, the fact that he's done this interview at this stage, just as we're heading into the World Cup, does that suggest a parting of the ways in January?
Yeah, and I think it's a situation that should have been handled, you know, in the off-season, because it's out of control now to a certain degree. And you know I'm the biggest Cristiano Ronaldo fan, but at times this season, you know, I'll defend him all the time, but I can't anymore to a certain degree, because I played for managers I didn't particularly want to play for, I felt disrespected by, but I would never not come on the pitch. When you start walking down the tunnel and making it about yourself, you leave the manager with no choice but to drop you against Chelsea in the way that Ten Hag did. I think Cristiano Ronaldo doing this interview, the timing of it makes absolutely no sense. I think he's a bit out of touch with reality, if I'm being honest, because his legacy, I think, is being tarnished. Because, you know, I don't foresee there being a statue. I don't foresee all those things. Some of the things he has said, you can't deny. You know, the training ground, those types of things. But the way he's gone about it, I've always realised as I've got older, don't act upon emotion.
Yes.
And it seems to me that he's asked Piers Morgan to do this interview when he's feeling in a certain frame of mind, and then he's going to, I think he'll regret this, because if he did the interview after he's left Manchester United, OK, go ahead and do whatever you want, but you're still a Manchester United player, and it really pains me, as you can tell, because it doesn't make sense to me. So
that's why it seems like he's doing it because he wants to get him out of there.
Yeah, but Manchester United won yesterday against Fulham. Garnacho, 18-year-old, doing well, scoring. Ronaldo's his idol. All of the back pages today, even last night, it was all over the news, is Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, the interview's not even out yet. It comes out Wednesday and Thursday. You know, it's only been snippets that have come out. So I'm going to wait to see the whole thing to make a complete opinion of it. But I think the timing of it is very, very poor. No denying Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the greatest players we've all ever seen. It can, you know, different opinions can say whatever they want, but that's just the way I feel. But I'm really disappointed in this situation. And I feel like it shouldn't be a situation where no one could speak out about him, because it seems like if anyone says anything bad about him, he ignores them. And he doesn't want to talk to them. I've spoken about Cristiano Ronaldo literally live, saying how great he is, how much I love him. But when he's doing stuff like this, I love Manchester United more than I love Cristiano Ronaldo. So, therefore, I have to give an unbiased opinion. And, again, I think he's let the fans down. I really do. And the club, because it doesn't make sense to me on a Sunday night, coming out with his snippets. And it's just we're talking about, and the disrespect. Him saying that Ten Hag's disrespected him, it's quite strange.
In terms of the coverage of it, officially, Manchester United and Ten Hag in particular have said he's part of our plans, he's an excellent player. Cristiano Ronaldo has been actually quite strong on his social media in refuting any allegations that he was trying to engineer a move away. He's talked about all
No one says they're going to move away when they're trying to do it.
But he's actually gone out of his way to say reports that I'm asking about this are false, or certainly to imply that with quite cryptic messages. The messaging and the briefing that's been coming through, and you will know about this, Darren, is that from the club, we can't get anybody to buy him. From Ronaldo, there are plenty of people interested, the club won't let me go. And that's why this interview coming at this time is so interesting.
Yeah, they're all intangibles. And when in football there are lots of things that happen that it's impossible to prove. Because sometimes when these conversations, you guys both worked in the game, and you both know that there'll be people who will be operating on your behalf who have that plausible deniability. So it's easy for you then to be able to come out and say, it wasn't me. I didn't say that. He didn't approach them on my behalf. I think as far as Ronaldo is concerned, everyone is well versed enough in football to be able to understand how it works now. So I don't think that anyone's in any doubt that there had been approaches made to other clubs, and you only have to look at the many clubs around Europe who said thanks but no thanks to know that there had been conversations ongoing. Where does it leave him? I think he's done at the club. There is no chance he would come back. We've already seen from Ten Hag's demeanour that he will not have somebody who's going to be fair, no manager would have a player back in the squad who's disrespected him in that manner. My understanding is that at United, Ronaldo, when he wants to do interviews, does them. He doesn't wait for anybody to say you can or you can't. He just does them. And I think listen, somebody who works for a national newspaper and in the decision-making process, the interview is superbly executed, and what they've done is they've leaked a little bit, as you've been saying, a little bit of snippets now, and then the whole thing later on in the week. And it's designed to keep you engaged, so you want to be talking about it. They love that we are talking about it, but we have to be talking about it because this is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and this is one of the biggest players in the world. But there are three things that Leanne said a second ago. The first is that he talks about disrespect, and he actually cited Sir Alex Ferguson. And the irony of that is Sir Alex Ferguson would have ripped up his contract before he'd finished his breakfast on the basis of that interview, because of the disrespect that he'd shown to the club, to the manager, to Garnacho, who should have had his day today, and all the headlines being about him,
and
to the
team. That because we know that Sir Alex Ferguson vetoed an interview that it's still not been aired on Manchester United's own television channel that he wasn't happy about.
With Roy Keane, you know, we know that he sold Jaap Stam after Jaap Stam spoke about the internal workings of the club in his book. And I look at this particular situation and I see a player, in my view, who is looking at a team moving on behind him and can't accept it. Garnacho is a future, Anthony is a future, the green shoots of recovery and the team's winning form, 14 wins from their last 21 matches. That's the future, a team working as a team rather than relying on one man. And the other supreme irony about all of this is that other clubs will look at his conduct and his anger and his reaction to not being a first-team starter and say, thank goodness that's not in our dressing room. And he's no closer to finding another big European club on the basis of that, because no club would want that in their dressing room.
As a fan of Cristiano Ronaldo, like I am, right, I feel like he's made all those people that have said he makes it always about him, that I've had to, you know, shut down for years and years and years when he's taken the fourth penalty because he wants to score the winner. He celebrates his goal. I've been like, no, it's not there. But he's validated all those people now because he's made it about him. And that's something that I feel like I can't really defend at this moment in time.
I was just going to say that there are all the things that he's talked about, and we will come back to, are things like, you know, the way that he's talked about the current manager, previous managers, whether it's Alex Ferguson, who's very close relationship with, whether it's about Rangnick, whether it's about Ten Hag, the current manager, also about former teammates, talked about the current crop of players at Manchester United and about the situation more generally at the club. And Manchester United, in the last couple of minutes, have released a statement, and this is what the club have said about Cristiano Ronaldo's interview. It said they note the media coverage. The club will consider its response after the full facts have been established. They're doing what you're doing, Leanne. Our focus remains on preparing for the second half of the season, continuing the momentum, belief and togetherness being built amongst the players, managers, staff and fans. Obviously this is unhelpful to Erik Ten Hag and to the players who are there. It's disrespectful, as you say, Darren, to his current teammates and to Garnacho, who could have had a brilliant moment where he was splashed all over the back pages with that late winner for Manchester United against Fulham. But of the comments that we've heard from the interview, the one that has garnered most sympathy, particularly from Manchester United, the ones about how the club has progressed since Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. It must be said, he doesn't talk about him, but it happened at the same time, left the club, about how the gym, the facilities, everything that he has access to, the food in the canteen. There was very very keen to be complimentary towards the chef as a person. He said, you know, all of that has stayed the same. I've moved on in that time, he said, when I was 20, but the club hasn't. And that, of everything, feels like the most legitimate complaint, or certainly the one that's most widely felt.
I think that I think it's quite a damning statement from him, because not only does that, for me, like talking about world-class players who are thinking of coming to a place like Manchester United, then you're going to think, what, they haven't even changed the facilities in 17 years, and I'm going to go... Can you imagine? That means Casemiro must be thinking the same. Ronaldo's, obviously, this is something that's probably been annoying him from the time he got there, about the fact that the facilities are what they are. But again, I have to go back to, you know, that's the owners, you know, and that for... You couldn't see anyone else. No. When's the last time you saw a player of that stature come out and have a dig at the club of that stature? To the owners. You don't
former
see it.
players have, you know, talking about the stadium.
Yeah.
Can I ask you...
But like that.
Yeah.
If he were coming back, would it not have been the case that they would have taken him... Because obviously we saw that summer...
Look.
Yeah, taking him to have a look around the training ground, this is where we are now. Would he not have had the chance to see any of that?
Well,
he's also got his own everything
He said it
as
was
well.
an emotional decision, didn't he?
Yeah.
He said he just loves the club.
And the thing is, you'd have
Holiday
thought...
romance.
Yeah, but everybody's known for many years that Man United have done... The Glazers have done nothing to fix the stadium, build a stadium up, and I think that again, not only for players who are thinking of going there, but for the fans to continue to protest these people. Manchester United not putting that lick of paint on properly for 17 years, changing that place. Ever like this like it is, ever like this like that how it is, and Ronaldo's obviously doing that interview for himself, right? Ronaldo's operating outside the club. You know what I mean? It's like you said there, Kels, he doesn't ask anybody when he does an interview. He does an interview when he wants. He's operating outside the club, so he doesn't really care deep down. The problem for me is that Man United need to find a way to get this squashed so as they can move on. Yeah. So as then, you know, and I'd say to the fans, continue to protest, because they do need to change everything at Manchester United, and that is not bringing back Ronaldo, maybe. You know, no, it doesn't seem like, for me, it's worked. No. It doesn't seem like it's worked. And we're not talking about just because it's Ronaldo. We're talking about any 37-year-old coming in without even the baggage. Like with a 37-year-old, with a young team, new manager trying to do what he's doing, how does he fit into it?
And even with the goals?
I think with
the goals,
I agree with Wright so much as, if you think about it, he's angry that Rangnick isn't starting him and is starting younger players and is asking him to come on the bench, and there are stories that when he was named in midweek as a substitute he was suddenly ill, but the fact is the team is moving on without him. That's football. Yes. That's not betrayal. That's not personal. That's just the way that football works. And that's
one thing I will say though, guys, is something that's not gaining much traction, and I'm not going to defend Cristiano Ronaldo, but he did speak a lot about the emotional side of, you know, his baby and that type of stuff, and he spoke about not being supported by the club. Now when you're in that frame of mind, people talk about money too much with footballers. Oh, they're on this much money. We are all from the same place. We're all human. And I feel like sometimes footballers are held on a different standard. So I'm not making excuses for him, but I'm saying, you know, there's an aspect of, he has been through quite a traumatic time, and he actually spoke about the Liverpool fans, how much they, you know, what they did for him, and that has to be taken from it as well. So for me, you know, like I said, it doesn't make sense, this interview. I don't think to anybody. It doesn't make any sense to anybody.
And what you say is right, and we should hold that to account. He's been through a hugely traumatic past, losing one of the twin babies that he had with his partner, and we shouldn't forget that there is a human being at the centre of all of this. Some of the issues that he's raised in this interview are issues that predate that, as you say, go back to his time of joining Manchester United, talking about the previous manager, Ralph Rangnick, saying he didn't understand why they brought him in. And then critical of Erik ten Hag in particular, but also talking about former teammates. Wayne Rooney was the player who came in for criticism from Cristiano Ronaldo. And we've seen that when he meets former teammates on the touchline, those that are deemed to be supportive get a hug, those that are deemed to be unsupportive are completely ignored. And I find that maybe that's because I've not been a player.
I was going to say, you're probably better placed to answer, because your job as a former player, as a legend, is to speak about other players.
He just said legend.
Here we go. They're already top of the league.
Don't bring your false modesty in here.
Sorry, no, please let Darren speak, please. Go on, Dee. Sorry, Dee.
But your job is to speak about other footballers.
Yes.
And sometimes to be critical.
Yeah.
It's never personal. We've spoken privately about this.
Absolutely.
It's just that you are speaking about the kind of thing that everybody else is seeing. And so it must be hard if a player is basically going to act in a manner that suggests if you are anything other than gushing with praise for them, you are criticising them.
The thing about it is as well, Darren, is like I was quite uncomfortable watching what he done to Jamie Carragher, because when I watched Jamie Carragher's kind of like summing up of the whole situation, it's not a million miles off of where we are now, in saying about how old he is and what he's going to bring and what's going to happen with the youngsters and how is he going to respect them. All the stuff that Jamie said, it's kind of come to be. And so you think to yourself, as a pundit, that's all you're trying to do. You know what I mean? I've got no problem with walking into any lounge, or if the lads are around and, you know, I can see any of them and say, no, I'm never personal. It will never be personal. You just try and give the facts. And that's something that all pundits try and do. No one's blatantly going out to dig you out just because.
I always analyse people the way I'd be okay being analysed myself. And it should never be
criticism,
constructive. But the Jamie Carragher one, I think everyone made a joke of it because he's obviously former Liverpool.
Yeah.
But then when it was Gary Neville, it almost became no longer funny because he's Man United and it becomes
and he's always been
he was a former teammate, whereas Carragher was an opponent.
Yeah, but the thing with him as well, with Gary Neville, this is why I thought it's petty, right? Is Gary Neville's always stuck by him, and one time Gary Neville may have said something about the way he's acting, the way he's behaved, which was terrible. Walking off, he blanks him. It's really...
What's going to happen to me at the World Cup then if I see it?
That's it. You're gone now. This is it. It's complete.
I do remember Gary Neville standing beside him when he was an 18-year-old. He'd done really well, and I think he won the Man of the Match award. And Gary stood beside him, interpreting for him, basically, and speaking up for him because he wanted to protect him and the culture around United at the time. Yeah. So Alex Ferguson used to protect Ryan Giggs. This was him protecting Ronaldo. And, you know, you could see that there was that solidarity for him and that will to protect him, and that has been the case ever since then. But I think that we are at a place now where he's criticising Wayne Rooney for basically telling the truth. Yeah. That if you look at the other sides in the top six, they are all sides with dynamism, with youth. You look at people criticising Klopp for selling Sadio Mane. Yes. And he's 7 years younger than Cristiano Ronaldo, but he recognises you need to keep regenerating the team, and he's brought in a 23-year-old to replace him. You look at City, they're bringing in younger players to replace the players they had. Arsenal, they've brought down the average age of the team. They've got one of the youngest teams in the Premier League. The future is youth. So I don't see it as betrayal. Again, that's football. But Ronaldo seems not to be able to appreciate that and is interpreting any scintilla of analysis around that as being criticism of him when everybody respects his status as a legend.
There's a really interesting... Guillaume Balaguer wrote a biography of Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's posted a clip of that on social media today where he talks about the fact that he is defined wholly as a human being, or primarily as a human being, by his sporting success. And if that sporting success isn't there, then he feels as a person he is no longer a success, and that attacks the identity of the human being at the centre of all of this, and that makes it particularly difficult to come to terms with, you know, the dying of the light, if you like. He's raging against it.
Yeah. It's quite a sad situation. It's quite sad when you consider what he's done, what he's achieved up to this point, and for him to not be able to deal with the coming to an end of something. Obviously, it happens to all of us when you're playing. It was happening to me, and you do feel a sense of like, is that it? Or because all you're thinking, and for him, especially with when you read about his youth and the fact when he was 12, Kells, he was taken away from his parents to go and pursue his dream and that, and you know, so he's always been lauded from that age, and that, so he's always kind of been, yes, okay, Cristiano, and it's happened to him. He's not somebody that's used to hearing negativity around him, and so he's somebody that's continually thinking about it. Now he's come to a place where it is kind of coming to it. That must be difficult for him. It's something that he may need to go and seek like some counselling for.
The only reason why I think he feels this way as well is because we were talking about this before. Like, doesn't he have a valid point about he should be playing when you look at Sancho, Martial, Rashford? You know, he's not had I know Rashford's just got picked for England, but debatable as well. So for me, when you look at it from a football perspective, we know Cristiano Ronaldo isn't the same as he was, but he's not an awful footballer all of a sudden. And I feel like everybody's acting like he can no longer kick a football.
But there's a
when he's not the same as he used to be.
It's a different the way they play, Liam, when he's not playing.
Sancho hasn't been great. Martial hasn't been great. So if you're Cristiano Ronaldo and you get told midweek Anthony Martial's going to play, who's been injured, had a decent pre-season, been at the club for 7 years.
He brings something different than Ronaldo. You know,
yeah, but
I hear what you're saying about Sancho.
Right?
Sancho's
still
not playing.
Well.
He's injured as well. You know, Rashford's got his form back. And when they're playing and the way they're playing, it's a different dynamic to the Man United. It's a quicker, sharper Man United. And yes, he scores goals. That's what he does. And I'm not going to... You can't knock that because that's what you want. But at the same time, with Man United and the way that they've now starting to progress, like I watched them against Fulham, they were brilliant. They should have been 3 or 4. They should have scored. Should have finished it. Maybe if he was on, he could have scored those goals. But at the same time, they play a different style of football when he's playing. I don't know, Lee.
Do you think that this is about the future of Manchester United, and that in the present they're thinking we have to learn to do this without Ronaldo, because long term we want to do this in a different way? And as much as he's going to get goals, and probably still is going to get goals wherever it is that he ends up.
Do you mind? I'll take that, because I think numbers that we saw... Sorry. I'll take that. If you look at the numbers that were in the bottom of the screen a second ago, they're brilliant numbers for a fantastic player. But the legacy now from his last 2 clubs is we're glad to see the back of him. And that's really sad. Yeah. I think that Juventus, he was scoring goals, but the team were not doing so well. They're doing better without him.
And senior players in that squad have come out and made those comments.
Yeah. In the Champions League, they've done badly, but in the domestically, although they'd lost their way under Max Allegri, they're stabilising again. And they've got a younger team where they're bedding in players who are kind of finding their feet. And that seems to be the case with Manchester United as well. And I just think that it is about 2 things. A, about the future, but also about recalibrating the status of the club, because I think a big part of the reason why they lost their way is because they were obsessed with celebrity. Yes. And they were obsessed with commercial popularity, and you know, they were bringing in the Zlatans and the Bastian Schweinsteigers and the other guys who were in the back end of their careers, but they were generating lots of social media engagement and lots of advertisers and were being attracted, but they weren't players who were going to drive the club forward. But I think right now it's about younger players who probably aren't going to hit the ground running straight away, but eventually they're going to be guys who are going to drive the club forward. He does have a legitimate gripe about the way that they've let, you know, there was some jokes about maybe watching training sessions on Betamax videos and stuff like that. But if you don't know what Betamax is, Google that one.
I was going to say, but what an anachronistic statement, Google Betamax. They're not 2 things you often hear together in the same sentence.
This grey beard is here for a reason.
But look, for Manchester United, they find themselves in 5th place in the table, and there's a real opportunity for them to really push for the top 4, but it looks as though they're going to be doing that without Cristiano Ronaldo, certainly in the aftermath of that interview, although maybe more will come out in the long version of that. It seems unlikely.